What is up, my fellow Twebbians? I am Logan, the Totally Epic Gamer, and today we're going to be going through the last Blighted rounds build that I'll be doing. And the real reason for that is there's not too much more to learn from this build, and I feel like it's pretty close to max for me right now. There's a few upgrades, and I'll go through what those could be, but for right now, this is fairly close to the top, and that's just kind of the peak that which you can achieve with this build. Starting with the class tree, very simple, same as always. You'll see the exact same class tree for everybody, and that's because you don't have a lot of options and a lot of maneuverability between each lane, so you keep it the way it is. Starting off with weapon damage, cooldown reduction. This is mainly for your decay turret because blighted rounds will be active always, so you want the decay turret to be going off to help with the back part of this class tree, which is 40% weapon damage whenever you throw down decay turret. So you kind of want that cooldown to make sure decay turret's always available for you. Weapon leech, 5%, obvious, just a little bit of healing. Armor piercing, 10%, just good. You don't get a lot of armor piercing options, so it's always good to take when you can. Crit damage by 15%. Toxic inflicts vulnerable, obvious, an extra 40% damage boost, so that's always good, or 15% damage boost and then 40% extra on top of that. Nitrogen capsules, long range down by 3 meters, which is really good because we're going to be focusing on long range, mainly because we have sharpshooter, which increases your long range weapon damage by 30%, meaning your long range weapon damage is always going to do more than your close range damage, so that's why we focus on it. Weapon damage 8%, toxic 10%, and that's because blighted rounds is always active, so toxic's always applied, which means 10% is always good, and that's going to be the same for over here, another 15% from toxic for the exact same reason. Nitrogen capsules, bringing your long range down to 12 meters, which is 2 meters away from close range, which is very, very good. Another 8% weapon damage. Here, we grab assault weapon damage because we're always going to be using assault weapons. Another assault weapon damage, armor piercing for, as stated why before, and plus it's on the way to the tree. Plus 20% damage, take 15% more. With the new nerf to emergency stance, this one will seem a little bit, more double-edged than it was, but you still need it. The damage is very important. 30% long range weapon damage. This is huge. 30% at long range when your long range is only 12 meters and farther is excellent. So we keep that. 50% magazine size. Obvious reasons. More magazines means toxic lead, which is one of the mods we'll be looking at. Goes for a little bit longer, goes a little bit farther, and you'll have less dropped blighted rounds. Toxic for the same reason, and then we explained this at the beginning, 40% weapon damage boost for you and your allies whenever you throw down blighted turrets. Works for blighted rounds too, but we won't be popping blighted rounds more than once, so it's not too helpful there. Going on to the skills, obviously blighted turret, and at 6.5 seconds, which means we pretty much throw it down, it comes off cooldown, we wait a second, we throw it down again, and we get the 40% damage. Blighted rounds is very, very taxing if you drop it, and that's why we focus so hard on keeping it active. A 50-second cooldown on your biggest damage dealer is very, very tough on you, which means you're pretty much going to slow down all your times if you ever drop it, which is why we focus so hard on keeping it up. Cold snap, this is pretty much your ultimate utility. Very, very strong. It's just meant to keep you alive and make sure you don't get swamped, and I also use it as a good AoE clear. Moving on to the inventory. Here, you pretty much have to run Killing Spree, and a lot of you will probably be running the Earthborn rifle, which comes with bone shrapnel, and we'll go through what you can do with bone shrapnel instead. For me, I didn't go that route. I had a decent tac rifle, so I just took it. So you see that I'm running the tactical variant, and that's because it has the highest base damage, 7202, and that's really going to help you with your blighted rounds build. Other variants just won't do as much damage. And the top node, you can either take crit damage, which I personally like. Make sure your crits do a lot of damage. I hit a lot of headshots anyways, but maybe if you don't hit a lot of headshots in the first place, what you should really, really focus on is getting weapon life leech. Especially with the emergency stance nerf, you're going to want to focus on being able to stay alive. You can't complete any expeditions if you're dead. So that's going to be very important. Healing received, you could swap out for close range damage. Honestly, not a huge upgrade. Long range damage is much more important in terms of the hierarchy. Everything else just has to be level 50. You won't be switching guns because that will drop blighted rounds. So as long as these guns are level 50, you're doing it right, because that will increase your total health. If you didn't know, when you look at your average item level, that will decide what your current max health and current anomaly bonus is for your character. So that's why it's important to keep these at level 50. Moving on, we have bonus firepower, long range, close range, and then Captain Hunter. You don't need freezing boost here. You could change it out with something like Kingslayer, which I don't have on this setup. Or you could change it to something like behind cover, get the 50k bonus when you're behind cover for firepower. I think it's called the standard ground. That one's okay. Generally, the big important thing here is Captain Hunter. In terms of hierarchy, it's pretty high up there, but More importantly, what you really need on your attributes is bonus firepower, long range, close range. Close range, again, less important, but people do get in your face. It's going to happen. So you're going to need some sort of extra damage. Close range is very helpful as the third attribute. Moving on, we have the Robe of the Borealis Monarch. The real reason I have this is so that I can get Bloodlust and Icicle Storm. Icicle Storm is very strong. When you throw down a Cold Snap, which is your freeze AoE, which you'll see later, and you pop somebody, it does a huge amount of damage to everybody. Generally, if you have the Earthborn Rifle, you will not need Icicle Storm because you already have Bone Shrapnel, which will inflict bleed. So we'll go through why that's important, but for those instances, you won't really need Cold Snap as much. It does similar-ish damage, although it says it does 250,000, generally hit around 500,000, and Icicle Storm procs from anything. You know, for Bone Shrapnel, when you kill somebody, it won't proc to the next person. So if you killed one and then Bone Shrapnel killed another, Bone Shrapnel won't proc again. Icicle Storm will. So if you kill one and it Icicle Storms, and it Icicle Storms the next, and it Icicle Storms the next, they'll all pop doing, 2-3 million damage in terms of AoE. Fairly strong. I like it. I find it really usable. But if you have Bone Shrapnel, you will not need it. Moving on, as you see, bonus firepower, close range, long range, always the important ones, and Euthanizer. Euthanizer is one of the most important mods in this set. 25% damage against toxic enemies. Blighted rounds always afflicts toxic. 25% flat damage boost. Now, you also have Stand Tall here. This is just because you're looking for the perfect gear set, In terms of hierarchy, bonus firepower comes first, always on your piece of gear, and then long range damage comes second. And then you start looking for those really good mods. You can always change one of the mods, so you kind of have to work with what you're going to get. Getting those perfect pieces of gear is very difficult, especially if the meta changes. In this case, emergency stance has changed. You don't need it anymore. In that case, you kind of need to swap out emergency stance. If you weren't modding it before, you're going to have a hard time getting a new piece of gear so you can switch it out to something better. Moving on, we have Radical Therapy and Sharp Eye with the same attributes as before. Sharp Eye, very strong, helps with the stacking that comes from Killing Frenzy. So once you get 3 kills, you'll see that Sharp Eye, and I believe Bloodlust is here, are all stacked up to full. Bloodlust applying about 50k-ish extra damage, Sharp Eye another 50k-ish extra damage, and then here you're getting 75% extra damage from 3 kills. So once you've got 3 kills, you're pretty much stacked up to full and you're ready to start tearing through. Radical Therapy, you're always applying Toxic. Again, same rationale, always very good. And then here you have Toxic Lead and Perseverance Shield with bonus firepower, long range, and Skill Life Leech. Skill Life Leech, not important at all, but, hard to find the perfect gear. Perseverance is actually my swap out for Emergency Stance. This will save you a lot more than you think. I find the proc is pretty forgiving, and it's only on a 5-second cooldown. Very, very pivotal. It's going to save you a lot more times than you expect. This is what I used to run before Emergency Stance became meta, and I find it still very, very strong. And then Toxic Lead is the way you're always going to replenish your mag so that Blighted rounds never runs out. Now, let's go over hierarchy just really quickly here. You really, really need Killing Spree. That's your first one. You need it absolutely. This is going to increase your damage by 75%. It is the most important, bar none. Next, Toxic Lead. You have to have it. You need Blighted rounds at all times. So on the hierarchy, it's very high. You might not think it because it doesn't apply damage, but it is the pinnacle to your build. Without it, the build does not work. You can also get the Blighted rounds perk that gives you 30% when killing things with Blighted rounds. That will also be the pinnacle if you don't have Toxic Lead, but Toxic Lead is better. Moving on, Sharp Eye, okay. Euthanizer, hierarchy, very high on the hierarchy. 25% damage boost, that is going to be super pivotal. Moving on from there, Bloodlust and Sharp Eye, pretty similar. They share the hierarchy spot, and then Radical Therapy probably becomes right under it. And then Captain Hunter, it really depends, but generally near the top. Those are going to be your most important things. And for me, I'm choosing Perseverance, like I said before. You can swap out whichever damage absorption you really want. If you are running the Earthborn Rifle and you are confident that you are running Bone Shrapnel correctly and you're applying bleed to people, what actually might be better for you is to run the Vampiric Mag, where you will actually, don't care about that maintenance, where you will actually be able to get Weapon Life Leech at such a high level that you won't have to worry. So if you see here, when you go to the tier 2 mods, right around this area, you will see that when you kill an enemy with bleed, you get 40% weapon life leech. If you're running Earthborn Rifle, feel free to pick this up instead. And with that being said, that's pretty much the full rundown of the build. There won't be another one. This is pretty much all the information that we have right now. There's no new mods out, so this is the best you can get. And now we're going to move on to the gameplay. But right before the gameplay, 92% of you are not subscribed. If you like the content and keep watching, then maybe consider subscribing. There's a lot more content to come out. And if you really enjoy the video, please leave it a like, hit that little bell. And now, moving on to the gameplay. So here we can see that I'm going to be running Stargrave here. And the main reason is it's really fast. It fits the build well, but more importantly, it shows a good showcase of, you know, human creatures and just kind of speed running interactions. So I find it's good to show off builds. So you'll generally see I run a lot of Stargrave or Scorched Lands, and the main reasons is, first off, they show a lot of different variability, and it kind of just exemplifies how the build can be played. So here you can see, pretty easy, doing quite a lot of damage. Nothing too big to worry about, and we just kind of take an outside route here. The biggest thing to probably notice is that I try and keep a lot of people at a very large distance from me. I don't try and get too close to them unless I feel like I can't reach them. And the main reason there is that I'm focused on long range damage, so I want them to be far away from me. And in that scenario, I just don't want to get too close and minimize my damage capability. You can see that here, well, that Cold Snap Icicle Storm did a lot of damage, and that's usually the best case scenario here. But as you saw there, a lot of damage is coming out of killing elites quickly, right? 800k per shot in the dome is very, very useful. And as you can see, my Perseverance shield has actually popped quite a lot. And I think that you'll all notice without Emergency Stance that you're actually going low quite often. And Emergency Stance, I think, would have, you know, never let me get this low in the first place. But Perseverance has stopped me from dying about 3 times already. And I've been able to pretty much free fire, not take too much cover, really focus on speed and time. And that's why I personally really like it. Even there, that guy, even though it looked like he was close to killing me, was never going to kill me. I had an 8k shield and 5k HP. We were definitely a-okay. And so one of the biggest parts of this build is, before I would always say, you know, throw down Blighted Turret as much as you can. Really make sure that you're getting that 40% damage boost. When you're at this kind of damage, when you're getting near the end of a full build, throwing down Blighted Turret becomes something that you do when you have time available. It's not going to increase your kill time too much. It's still, most of the time, going to be 2 bursts for most enemies, right? So if it's always going to be 2 bursts, you only want to be throwing down Blighted Turret when you don't have the option to kill, because otherwise it's going to slow down your times. And this time was actually not very fast for me. It was a 525, and I think my fastest Stargrave is 455, so honestly not too fast for me. But as you can see, you know, you're doing 340k a shot, non-crit. You're really, really doing a lot of damage, and this build is really meant for solo. You need those kills. You need to be able to just, you know, annihilate the people in front of you. And, you know, crawlers have less armor. That's why you saw me do 900k there. But it's just really meant for you to cream stuff. I know people have not enjoyed the Blighted rounds as much. They don't think it's as much skill or talent or whatever. But for somebody like me who just loves using, you know, guns to kill something, I just find that these builds is the most satisfying for me. Even on my Pyro, I run a bonus firepower build. On the Devastator, I like running bonus firepower. I like shooting stuff more than I like casting a lot of spells. So for me, I like this build a lot with that I have pretty much 1 or 2 spells that I just kind of use when I feel it's the right moment, but I'm not spamming them. And I really like that aspect. I like that the aspect is really centered around, can I aim well? And if I can't aim well, like as you're seeing right there, then, you know, my time's going to suffer. So the better I aim and the more on I am, the better I'm going to perform. And that's what I really like about this build. Now, what's also important here is that in Stargrave, you have a lot of elites to fight. And when you have a lot of elites to fight and you have Captain Hunter and a high damage build, you're going to just destroy them, especially crawlers and the behemoths. They have easy crit targets, just their mouth. It's so easy. You're going to cream them for 900k a shot. Absolutely stunner. But I think the most important thing to take away from this build is that although you do not run a lot of survivability, I'm not even using weapon life leech on my regular weapon, it's still quite easy. And the main reason is that you kill things before they can kill you. And I think that was the whole goal of Outriders in the first place, was that you're supposed to be able to kill things before they kill you, and it's supposed to be a race. And I think the Technomancer, especially this build, really exemplifies that. And here you're going to see my favorite part to use Icicle Storm or Cold Snap, and why I think it's better than Bone Shrapnel, because Bone Shrapnel doesn't do that. And that's just amazing to me. You know, just instantly popping an entire wave right in front of you feels so good. It's so satisfying, and it's just, you know, it's fun. You know, sometimes it's not all about how fast can you go, and sometimes, you know, throw a little bit of fun in there. It's enjoyable for me, so I just do it. And as you see, this one's pretty much cleaning up. You know, the monsters are pretty much dying before they get a chance to get to me. And you notice I sometimes leave these perfors around me. And that the main reason there is that I don't need to rush the things that are close by. You know, I can focus on the long range things that are going to take time to kill and then come back after. Those guys were frozen for a long time. I do not need to rush that in this build. I can just take my time, focus on where I do the most damage, which is at long range, and then focus back to myself later. And here you're going to see I'm going to kill this guy fairly quickly. I just kind of focus him right off the bat. Not even hitting a lot of crits there as I try and shoot him in the little armpit area. I know that it's his ribcage that actually gives the crits, but you know, if you aim for the armpit, you're probably going to get pretty close anyways. And here, just kind of finishing it up. Unfortunately, didn't get lucky on any of the drop rolls, but what can you do? You know, such is the way of RNG. But this is pretty much the build. I think it's really easy to achieve. I think it's really fun to run, and it's a good way of just, you know, enjoying the game. You know, especially if you're really into aiming and just destroying everything in front of you from pure like accuracy and mouse movement or a joystick movement, then this is it for you. And as you saw there, the 525, nothing too crazy, but 525 is a very fast time when I think the gold is somewhere around 11 minutes. So you've got a lot of wiggle room. And right at the end, feel free to just look at those numbers. There's some damage dealt numbers. It's exactly as you'd expect. A lot of damage coming from Blighted rounds, about 13 mil coming from Icicle Storm. And the real reason that Icicle Storm is doing so much damage is because I always pop it when there's a ton of mobs and it kills so much at once. And when each proc is for like 250, 500k, it's obviously going to do a lot of damage. And right at the end, just to show you kind of proof of concept, all of the times and best times that I've had on expeditions have been with this build. And as you can see, they're very, very low times. 421 Boomtown, 455 Stargrave, 6-minute Frontline, under 6-minute Chem Plant. And that's just kind of the way it is. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did like it, please leave a like. And, you know, feel free to subscribe. It really helps me out. And there's going to be more build videos on the way. Thanks for watching.